Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Hi guys, Sue from 1A Auto, and today we're going to install a lower control arm in our 09 Honda CRV. First step, we're going to remove the tire. It's a 19mm socket on this. Now with the lug nuts all loose, you're clear to jack it up and put it on a jack stand. When removing the right lower control arm, we're going to need to take out this castle lock pin, in other words, cotter pin, and we're going to be removing the nut onto the knuckle from the ball joint, and these two long mounting bolts, and the long bolt going this way through the control arm bushing. Both go through the subframe. I'm going to start by spraying everything down with rust inhibitor spray, everything that I can get to at least. These long bolts are going to be hard to get to, but I think I can see the top of the bolt shining through there. Anything helps. So then I'm going to remove the cotter pin. I'm going to start by removing the cotter pin on the lower ball joint and just give it a little snug pull. And it comes right out. Now this nut is a 19mm, so I'm going to use a nice long box end 19mm wrench and get that to start twisting off. Now that I have a nice snug fit, give it a good pull, push. Once I get to a comfortable place, I can put a ratchet wrench on there and take it off a little faster. Paying attention to the depth. I don't want to get the wrench stuck in between the stud and the CV shaft. I'm going to spray a little more rust inhibitor spray down in here on the stud and hope to get it to penetrate down through the knuckle. So when I do hit this with a hammer, it hopefully will pop off freer. So to separate the lower ball joint from the knuckle, I'm going to use what we call a pickle fork or a ball joint fork. And I'm going to find a nice location in the front here. And I'm going to tap it in place. Now, if you don't have one, you can use a hammer. As long as you hit a nice clear cut hit, as long as you hit a nice clear spot on that knuckle without damaging the knuckle hole where the ball joint will go through. Now that that's broken free, I'll remove the pickle fork and use a nice pry bar so that I can locate this and pry this down. I might be able to do this by hand. Oh, good. So we're going to get that out of the way, push that up. So now we can move on and unbolt the front mounting bolt and then the two rear. So the front mounting bolt to the lower control arm is a 17mm head. So I'm going to use a nice 1/2" drive socket and a 1/2" breaker bar. I'm going to break that free. This is like a 4" bolt, so it might take a while. I've reached the end of the threads there, and I'm going to leave that in just for a guide. So when I undo these, I don't have the arm fall down or buckle on me. So I'm just going to remove these two. And these are 14mm head for the socket. Now with my 1/2" breaker bar, give it a good spin around. Break the front one. Break it free. Now here's a good note to pay attention to if you jack up your vehicle and you don't have a 2-post and you do jack it up, make sure you don't put your jack stand here. That's a common place to put one when you're removing the lower control arm. You won't be able to access those bolts. So a nice spot would be right here on the subframe, flat spot. Now I'm going to remove the front bolt completely. That's 17mm head. Okay, before I pull that bolt out, I'm going to hold the control arm and wiggle that out. In this process, the sway bar mounting bracket mounts to the top of the lower control arm. So we're going to have to remove two bolts that go straight down, and they are going to be 12mm heads. And they're going to be a 12mm socket. In this case, I'm using 3/8 drive. Easier to get in there. The back one, I'm not going to be able to use deep socket, so I'm going to hope to be able to get in there with a shallow socket. So I needed to actually use a twisty socket. So I have to put a 12mm twist socket down there and see if I can get a good angle on that to break that free. You might be able to get a wrench in there, probably not. So you're going to have to assemble something, whether it's a swivel with a short socket or if you have a full twisty socket. There we go. I have switched over to 1/4" drive now that I broke that inner bolt free, and it's easier for the access. All right, there we go. And now I can remove the front one. I'm going to remove that upper sway bar bracket. Set it aside. And now with a little pry bar, Should be able to push this out. Move the front first. Give it a tug. So here we have a 1AAuto.com lower control arm for a 09 Honda CRV, and here's the factory control arm. They compare right to spec. They seem to have a nice bolted tire ball joint on, if that is an option that you need just the ball joint down the line in the future. So that bolts right on, just like the factory. No welding spots, which is nice. Comes with a new castle nut. Brand new bushings, both in the front and the rear. Nice product. Don't forget to pick your parts up at 1AAuto.com. So prior to installation of our new low control arm from 1AAuto.com, remember to take the Newcastle nut off and to remove the plastic shipping. This is to help protect that boot for that lower ball joint so it doesn't get pinched or torn during any packaging or shipping handling. So please make sure you remove that before installation. So now to install the new lower control arm from 1AAuto.com, we're going to basically reverse procedure. I'm going to line up the back and just give it a good muscle in. Just work it right in there. I'm going to take advantage at this point and put the lower ball joint stud in the knuckle just to line it up. Now we're going to have to line up the front bushing bolt and the two rear bushing bolts that go up into the subframe. And then I'm going to install the sway bar bracket last. So to line this up, I'm going to have to pry a little bit on it. We're going to have to see if we can get in there and see if we can get it to line up. There we go. I'm just going to hand thread that in, just a couple of turns, and then I'm going to go to my rear bolts and line those up. I'm going to have to center that and really work that to locate that. There we go. Yeah, once it finds its spot, you can easily thread that in by hand. I'm going to install the front one. Same procedure. Once the threads are all started by hand, you can start tightening down. So once I've snugged these up by hand and make sure they're bottomed out, I'm going to torque these to 43 foot-pounds in the two rear bolts. That's once again a 14mm socket. This is 43 foot-pounds. And the front control arm bolt with the 17mm socket is 76 foot-pounds. So I'm going to snug her down. Now I'm ready to install my castle nut on my ball joint. I'm gonna have to maneuver that knuckle so it lines that up, push that up through, and put my new castle nut on. So now with my ball joint in the knuckle, I'm gonna install the new castle nut. Start it by hand, and this castle nut is a 21mm socket or wrench. So now that it's bottomed out, I'm going to keep giving it a good couple of turns and really snug that down. Trying to line up the castle nut with the milled hole in the stud so you can put your cotter pin through. Okay, the milled hole is on this side. A little more. Okay, we're lined up. So I can now install the cotter pin. So the new cotter pin for this low ball joint is a 1/8. That's the diameter of it. I'm gonna slide it right in through the milled hole in the stud. And then I'm gonna use a pair of cutter tools and I'm gonna just pry it up, fold her over. I have to push this one down. And now our cotter pin's installed. So now we're fully installed the lower control arm. Last step is to put the sway bar bracket back on the top. So I'm gonna place that in there. I'm gonna hand start the front bolt. And then hand start the back. I am respraying the bolts with rust penetrating spray, so it can hopefully help the installation. It's always a good idea to make sure you start everything by hand, especially in a tight fit. Once they're snug, I'm going to grab my 3/8 and really give it a good snug. It's going to be impossible to get a torque wrench in there, so use your best judgment and feel. And there you have it. We're done installing a lower control arm. So now that all our front end repairs are done, to remount your tire, you're gonna install the tire. Start all the lug nuts by hand. And once we have them snug up against the rim and the hub, I'm going to lower it down and I'm going to torque these lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. That's the manufacturer's specification for this vehicle. So if you're using a floor jack and not a lift, I don't put all the weight of the vehicle on the tire yet. I just make sure that it's got a good amount of weight on it so that I can get a nice flat mounting. And torquing these and tightening them in a star pattern assures a nice snug fit. Once again, the wheel torque on this 09 Honda CRV is 80 foot-pounds. I like to recheck, see how that. And now you're safe for the road.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.